I have to use my phone to do my live. The computer is not using my camera for some reason, and I don't have time nor the energy to put into that this morning. So, first of all, my name is Laura. I am a nurse of over 21 years. I have been carnivore. Just trying to get this set down a little bit better so you can see me instead of my window. There we go. Anyway, so what I'm going to talk about really doesn't matter what type of eating style you're doing. I just want to go over this. I did do this at a widow's meeting I was asked to speak at a while back. So I wanted to go over some stuff. It's crazy when you look at the back of your food ingredients. If you're buying stuff in boxes and packages, I really, really recommend that you do look at the ingredient list. You need to know what is in your food. That way, at least if you choose to eat it, then it's informed consent. You chose to eat that, and that's up to you. We all get to make choices. Um, but anyway, I want to go over some like little catch things that they use. So a lot of people are going to start seeing, and it's been there, but once you start paying attention to it, you can't not see it. So one of the things that you will see is GRAS, GRAS. So what those are is those are substances in our food supply, not allowed in any other country but here, that are generally recognized as safe. Now, if you take your dog to the vet and he's like, yeah, we need to give him this shot, it's generally recognized as safe. Are you going to do it? I doubt it. Maybe you would. I don't know. Anyway, but the group of these GRASs have a variety of different substances. It could be anywhere from flavorings, spices that they say, phosphates, and carrageenan. These substances are considered harmless under prescribed conditions of use. Well, I'm a nurse, so when you say prescribed, that means somebody took time to figure out the actual amount. I worked in a food factory and I know that's not the thing. I know it's not there. Good morning, Robin. Good morning, Dawn. Another thing you want to look for is phosphates. They can be toxic. They can cause diarrhea, calcification of your arteries and your organs, and soft tissues. So if you know anybody that, not the fatty lipomas, but people that get those bony bumps on them in odd places, places that aren't over like the knuckles or, the elbows where you kind of expect you've hit something and maybe it's causing that. But actually out in soft tissues, if you look back at their diet, you're going to find that the majority of their intake had a lot of phosphates. Carrageenans, another thing you'll see in a lot of the foods that are considered under that GRAS. Can have adverse effects on your gastrointestinal health, including aggravating intestinal inflammation. So, especially people who have SIBO, IBS, ulcerative colitis, anything like that. Anything that has that carrageenans is, I would be very careful. I would probably avoid. Most of that is used in foods. I think you'll find it a lot in gravy packets, different things like that, because it's a thickening that they're allowed to use in our foods in the US. European Union has banned it decades ago. It is not allowed to be used in their food products, including baby food. It is allowed to be used in ours, including baby food. Let me just look here. Well, thank you. Um, Robin says I rock. I think it's because I'm in red, maybe. Anyway, um, 5 common food additives that are used in the US that are not allowed to be used in all these other countries. And some of these countries, we as Americans, we're like, oh, they're a third world country. Are they? Are they? Because they're not using these ingredients because they know what they cause and they want their population to be healthy. I think we know what ours wants the population to be. These are awesome sounding. So, titanium dioxide, sounds tasty, is a chemical that is commonly added to American foods. Foods with titanium dioxide are typically candies, pastries, chewing gum, coffee creamers, chocolates, and cake decorations. These can irritate the eyes, nose, and throats. Since it's been shown to cause lung cancer in animals, it is considered a carcinogen. Such substances may have also have the potential for causing reproductive damage in humans, which is kind of scary. Um, Brominated vegetable oil. That sounds pretty good too. Good morning. Good morning, Catherine. So brominated vegetable oil, for one, just the vegetable oil itself is horrible. Like, if you just go back and do a deep dive as to why vegetable oils, how they are created, why they were created, and then there is no bridging of how the hell did it go from being an industrial lubricant to now it's to cook your food in or to add to your food. I can't make that bridge. I don't know. Maybe somebody else out there can help me. And as always, if you have questions or comments, just throw them in the comments. I will absolutely get to those. Brominated vegetable oil, BVO, is how a lot of times you will see that listed, because they know most people are not going to go look this stuff up. Um, you just trust that it's FDA or USDA approved. Means nothing. The alphabet groups have been compromised. BVO is used in citrus flavored drinks in the US. This food additive is banned in Japan, European Union, UK. Bromine is a deep red, oily liquid with a sharp smell. It is toxic. Bromine is used in many areas such as agriculture, chemicals, dyes, insecticides, pharmaceuticals, and chemical intermediates. They utilize this a lot of times in your pops, different citrus flavored items, because it keeps it from separating. Because if you take the oil of a fruit, which is where you're going to get most of that scent taste that they're trying to use, it will try to separate from everything else, like the liquid form, so you would see it separate, and they don't want that. So that's why they do that. The next item of concern is BHA and BHT. These can induce allergic reactions in the skin. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies BHA and BHT as possible human carcinogens. These are used in preservatives in foods, food packaging, and animal feed to preserve appealing food color, odor, and flavor. This is used in the US but banned everywhere else. I don't know if I go into appeal on here, but let me just tell you, if you have time, I would recommend that you go out and you look up on MSDS, Material Data Safety Data, and look up APEEL. And look to see who has the patent on the APEEL. But just read the safety guidelines that go along with that. And then when you go buy your vegetables or fruit and they have that little circle sticker on it, you want to pay attention and make sure it doesn't say appeal. Or maybe you will like what appeal does. I don't know. Just saying, I would be very careful of it. Another chemical that is allowed to be added in American food is RBST, previously called bovine growth hormone. Yeah, that's what it says. Bovine growth hormone. It is genetically engineered hormone that they inject to dairy cows to increase their milk production, which means it's in the milk that people are drinking, which might explain why children are developing secondary sex indicators as breast, all these things at such a young age. I mean, you give hormones to cows to make them fatter, grow faster. Same with their milk production. You eating the meat or drinking the milk, it's not going to do that to you, though, right? Sure. Anyway, so it's so scary. Anyway, the milk from the RBST treated cows is used in dairy products, including ice cream, butter, cheese, and yogurt. The current legislature does not allow for the use of RBST within European unions and EU member countries, but it is used extremely widely in the US. All of these things you can look up yourself. You do not have to believe what I'm telling you. I'm just throwing out the information, and that way you can dig further if you would like. Especially if you have family members with ADHD, ADD, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, eczema, autoimmunes, IBS, leaky gut syndrome, I would absolutely be doing a deep dive into these. Artificial food dyes. They're great. Most artificially colored foods are colored with synthetic petroleum based chemicals called dyes that do not occur in nature because food dyes are used almost solely in foods of low nutritional value, such as candy, soft drinks, gelatin, desserts, etc. A good rule of thumb is to simply avoid all dyed foods. You may also see the term lake on the label. Avoid those as well. Which I don't know. I haven't, I try not to even, I don't buy anything that comes in a box. I don't buy anything that comes in a jar or can unless I do it with my stuff. But I don't buy stuff like that. But I go with my husband when he's buying some of this stuff. And I, like last night, I was looking at the labels and I'm just like, what in the hell is going on here, Batman? Um, let's see. That is the technical term for water insoluble form of dye, lake, often used in fatty foods and low moisture foods. In addition to problems mentioned below, synthetic food dyes cause hyperactivity in some children. It just uses the word some. I don't know what that percentage is. That would be great. Um, Red 3 causes cancer in animals, um, and there is evidence that several other dyes are also carcinogenic, yet these dyes are allowed to be in our foods. Three of the dyes, other dyes other than red 3, of course, are your red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, um, that have been found to be contaminated with benzidine, which is another carcinogen. At least four dyes, blue 1, red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6, have absolutely been correlated with causing the hyperactivity, the excitability really of the brain and the neurotransmitters, which is why it also affects people who have like depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia. That is all because of what's being messed with. And I'm not saying there are some people who organically have this, any of those conditions, but I do believe that we did not see this 40 years ago to the extreme that we see it now, along with some of the other childhood diseases that we're seeing. Next is my absolute favorite. So, you know how you used to see on the back of food cans and things where it would say GMO. So, you knew it meant genetically modified, or organisms that were used because of the way they do the corn, wheat, soybeans, and all the things that they grow commercially now, which most 99% now, I won't say 99, let's say 95%. If I was a guessing gal, of farmers are no longer farmers, they are producers and being paid as such and being regulated as such, but they all have to use seeds that have been genetically modified. When I was a kid, my grandfather could save, seed corn from the year prior and plant that. They are no longer allowed to do that. They have to buy new seed from, the seed dealer, kind of like a weed dealer. Anyway, so this new term that you're seeing on the back of your products now is bioengineered foods. And I had a debate with my mother because she at first was like, yeah, that just means genetically modified. And I said, Mom, we've had genetically modified statement on the back of these food products for 30 years. Do you really think the USDA and FDA was like, yeah, we're going to change every single label. We're going to go in and wipe that out and add these big long words in there because we didn't change anything? Seriously. I mean, common sense would say that's not correct. So I looked it up. Now, I did have to dig and I did have to go to DuckDuckGo search engine to find this because when I looked it up on Google, it was like, oh, it's just GMO. And I was like, doesn't smell right. So I just dug and dug and dug, and then I was able to find what it means. So, bioengineer foods that contain genetic material that has been modified through certain laboratory techniques, as for which the modification could not be obtained through conventional breeding or found in nature. Again, try to stick close to nature. Also includes genetically modified sources. Europeans have feared long term health effects from the above, and since genetically modified food is still relatively new, there is no scientific test that they want to come forward with. They have some, but they don't have to release the results from tests or studies. They don't have to. They can spend your money, their money, somebody else's money to do these studies and these tests, and they don't ever have to release what they found in those. So if it is something they don't want you to know, they just don't have to release it. And then you get to find out about it, 50 years later, like we have found out about a lot of stuff. You have to start digging. So the other thing with bioengineered foods is that it can be lab created. Now, the concern that I have with lab created is what cells are they using to do this with? Um, Same as some of the other issues that I had in 2021 is cells that were being used in certain pharmaceuticals um, that go against my belief system. So I'm definitely not going to eat something. I wouldn't allow something to go in my body that had cells that I don't agree with. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. You can look it up and kind of decide what you want to do for your own safety and your family's safety. Europeans prefer that they don't use genetically modified foods. Um, that's why everybody's like, we feed the world. America feeds the world, and I'm like, who the hell are we feeding when all these other countries don't use genetically modified? They won't take our meat that's had hormones shoved in them or antibiotics, and I'm like, who are we really feeding? I feel like we're just doing something with the markets. Why you have more of something that you can control the market price more than we're sending to all these places. I recommend eating as much single ingredient foods as possible, if you're asking me my opinion. This includes, like, if you're a vegan or a vegetarian and you love vegetables, go for it. Um, but try to avoid the ones that are packaged, because anything that's packaged has been altered. You also have to remember something. I went to a Whole Foods with my mom up in Coralville or Iowa City, Coralville, I think, Iowa. And we went there, and normally she has these little carrying bags that are made out of some kind of material that she takes in with her, and we forgot them. And so we get checked, we're in the checkout line, and the lady's putting everything through, and everything that went through, my mom's broccoli, her kale, she does rutabaga, she does all these, I don't know. Um, but anyway, everything was wrapped in plastic, or it was on like that white, formed, bottom, and then wrapped in plastic. And we get to the end, and she goes, oh, how are you going to bag your food? And I'm like, can we put it in a plastic sack? And she goes, you can buy a paper sack, which was not as cheap as an Aldi paper sack, I can tell you. And I said, why? And she goes, well, the environment, all the plastic. And I said, you do see that all of this shit that we just paid for is in plastic. So you're going to save the planet because you're not going to put it all in one plastic bag, even though they're all wrapped in plastic. And she goes, yeah. And I go, wow, that's a special kind of special. Anyway, so I would recommend, trying to stick with single ingredient foods, try to get it as much from people's gardens. Don't steal it, but you know what I mean. Ask. Farmers markets, if you do get your things from the store, you can clean them in 1 to 4 parts white vinegar to water in the sink, and you can do it for just a few minutes. I have left stuff as long as 15 minutes. And then when you see the oil slick on top of the water when you're done, and then you put your hand down in that, and it has this weird feeling. And I just think these people that go home and just eat that stuff. And it's like, we wonder why we are so sick. So I think the moral to the story is read your ingredients. And if you don't know what something is, look it up. See what it is used, why they're using it, and what are the repercussions. And you can always go out and look up any of these chemicals, and they are chemicals, and look up the Material Data Safety Sheet, the MSDS. Like I said, look up that appeal. We are what we eat. Chemicals should not be part of our daily eating. It's no wonder over the last 100 years our health has declined rapidly as we departed from nature to quick and easy food items. If you think back to your childhood, do you remember your grandparents? And this will be people that I'd say are in my age range, 40, 50, 60. Do you remember your grandparents having uncontrolled high blood pressure, multiple family members with diabetes like we have now, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, ALS, MS, fibromyalgia, joint dysfunction, where their joints are just destroyed and they're needing joint replacements? I would say most of you would have to say probably not, that you saw much of that. I believe that this is one of the reasons that there's a higher incidence of metabolic disease. I do believe it's coming from the food supply, the air, the water. When you take a populace of other nations that ban many of the above items, their metabolic disease ratio is significantly lower than ours in the United States. So, metabolic syndrome is a prevalence of metabolic syndrome was estimated, taking into account the complex sampling. The total prevalence of metabolic syndrome increased from 37.6% in 2011 to 12 when they did that to see the number of people in the United States with metabolic syndrome. And that's still crazy high. If you think about it, 37.6% in 2011 and 12 had metabolic syndrome. And it went up to 41.8 in 2021. I would love to see what it is in 2024. I couldn't find where they are even looking at that anymore, which doesn't really surprise me. Lastly, we consider living in the United States to be beneficial as a nation that is considered not to be a third world nation. But then I say to you ask yourself, has our longevity is now starting to dip? So how long you are living, we just kept going up and up and up and up, and now we're doing this. And we're seeing a decline for the first time in over 150 years. And especially when you look at other nations, it's crazy. The researchers found that men and women in the United States live 2.2 fewer years than residents in other countries that are even similar to us, other than their food and water supply. I want this to help you. I just want you to be informed. And it is our job to try to do the best we can with our bodies so that we're not in the medical industrial complex, which is almost as big as the medical or the more of like your military industrial complex. But I'd say we're pretty close when you look at medicine. So hopefully this has been beneficial. It gets me very upset as to our food supply. Let's see. Hi, B Dog. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, Brenda. I work with a lady whose daughter was in Ireland, and she brought back, several food items with her. And she was like, you wouldn't believe Fanta, which is an orange flavored pop, it's got like 5 ingredients or 4 ingredients. And when she was over there, she sent me, a picture of it. And we were going to Walmart, which is my nemesis. And I was like, let's look. It was just crazy, the difference. But her mother went over to visit her for a week, and she has all kinds of gut health issues over here. I mean, she's had a lot of trouble. Anyway, she went over there and she was like, Laura, I ate bread, I ate pasta, I ate all these things. And she says, and even their treats, she goes, they're not so sweet that makes your teeth almost hurt. She was like, it had natural ingredients in it, it didn't have all these dyes in it. And she says, even the Tic Tacs. So the Tic Tac box that she brought back, the box itself is orange. But when you open it up and dump the Tic Tac out, they were 100% white because they don't use the dyes. And she was like, even that had no food dyes in it. And she said, I felt so good. And she said, by 2 days being back here, eating, the food that's out here, she was already feeling cruddy again and having stomach issues. And I'm like, it's an unfortunate thing. So, anyway, that's what I have for today. Be sure to follow me if you like health related information. I am carnivore, but I was keto for 28 years, so I do feel like I have a pretty good handle on keto, ketovore, and carnivore. And then, this weekend, I believe Saturday, I'm not sure of the time, I'm going to be on with the Fierce Felines, and we're going to be on a podcast with, or a broadcast with the Lionesses. So it's going to be all women that are carnivore, ketovore, I think, maybe all carnivore, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's a ketogenic diet regardless. But we will be on, and I think there'll be some interesting discussions on there that you may want to watch. If I have time this weekend, I'm going to buy a brisket since I have mine frozen, and I'm going to can that. So I will do a video for cold packing that if I get that meat done. So I have some other bigger fish to fry um, this week to go and testify um, against a medical institution is all I will say at this point. So that's tomorrow. So, all right, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And as I always say, meet, heat, eat, and repeat.